All right, in this chapter, chapter 17, we're going to get into some fun stuff, demonstrative and relative pronouns. These are used a fair amount in a lot of narrative texts like Genesis. Deuteronomy has them all over the place. So it's going to kind of unlock for us more of the text, and I'm going to be able to start drawing from actual verses of the Old Testament for some of your practice stuff now. So. Here's our outline of what we're going to do. We're going to review, our review this week is going to be sentence structure, and then we're going to go into the demonstrative pronouns, their forms and their uses, and then the relative pronoun, and then we'll throw in this fun thing called the directive hey, and then do vocab and practice. All right, so I just wanted to review again sentence structure, especially as we're adding more and more things in with construct phrases and possessive suffixes and all that stuff. I just kind of bring us back to the basics to remember that the standard Hebrew word order starts with a verb, and in a Hebrew sentence, this is, remember, going from right to left, even though I'm writing in English. So we start with a verb, and then we often have a subject, a direct object, and then finally an indirect object. So here in this example, we can see a verb here, lakach, and then subject, our direct object, helpfully marked out with our definite direct object marker, and then our indirect object. And as many of you have already kind of worked out your own system for parsing these sentences, translating them as you come to them, but just a good kind of flow I've typed out here. The first step is often good to identify the verb. You're getting down the cal perfect and imperfect, you're memorizing those prefixes and suffixes, and so spotting the verb, particularly because it does so often tend to be the first word in the sentence, is a good first step. Maybe you want to highlight it a certain color, or maybe you just want to write V next to it. Okay, I found my verb. The next thing I would recommend is to look for the definite direct object marker, this guy here, it, or we've talked about how 10% of the time in the Old Testament it's 8 with the tsere and no makef here. So if you find that, then you can split the sentence between subject and predicate. That is, you've got the verb and the subject, the one doing the verb, and then the predicate, remember, is the rest of the sentence that's got our direct object and our indirect object. So if you find the definite direct object marker, you can split this and say, okay, whatever comes before it is the subject of my sentence, and so that is verb and subject, as in the person or object doing the action. And then whatever is after the definite direct object marker is the predicate of the sentence, which will have the direct object and the indirect object. So if you have a definite direct object marker, that's very helpful, because to be able to split that sentence in two and be able to say, okay, this is subject, this is predicate. Next, identify the subject, and so just remember that the subject is going to agree with the verb in gender and number. If it's a construct phrase, it's going to be that first word in the construct phrase that is the subject. It could be a personal pronoun, or because the Hebrew verb already has the subject built in, there may not be a subject. However, if there is a noun in between the verb and the definite direct object marker, that is the subject. So make sure you spot that. Again, go back to that definite direct object marker to then identify the direct object. So if you get et or ate, that's very helpful. If there's no definite direct object marker and we have an indefinite direct object, or those times that the Hebrew sentence just doesn't use the definite direct object marker, which is less frequent, but then you want to identify whatever the noun is right after your subject. Again, if your subject is a construct phrase and has adjectives and stuff like that, you got to find the end of that and then move on to the next noun. That's most likely your subject. And then finally, look for prepositions to introduce the indirect object, because that's how these sentences are often used. So even in English, he kicked the ball to, or maybe we'll go around the table. Here we have the verb, here's our subject, the verb in English actually introduced the predicate sentence. But anyway, the ball is our direct object, and then our indirect object here is introduced by a preposition. And that's how we know that this is our indirect object. So similarly in English, look for prepositions to identify the indirect object. Remember, they're not directly receiving the action of the verb, they're kind of the follow-on for it. So again, most of you have a system that you're using, but just as a system of review there, or perhaps maybe picking up a few things for help. All right, let's talk about the forms of the demonstrative pronoun. Demonstrative pronouns demonstrate what we're talking about. It's like the English of these, this, those, or that. Those are demonstrative. So I'm talking about that horse. That I've introduced a word that's pointing your attention to that horse, demonstrating which horse I'm talking about. Pointing to the specifics of the setting. So in terms of our vocab here, this and these are the what are called the near demonstratives. So they are closer in either spatially or temporally or something like that to the speaker, the near demonstratives. For masculine singular we get ze, and for feminine singular we get zot, and then for plural we get ele. So these are the near demonstratives to say this or these. That and those are called the far demonstratives because they imply a distance from the speaker. That it's not this horse, which if you picture that in your mind, I must be really close to be able to point out to this horse. It's near me bodily. But then if I say that horse, you can perhaps picture me pointing across the stable or whatever. I don't have horses, so but these pronouns, these demonstrative pronouns, imply a distance from the speaker. Again, that could be spatial distance, it could be temporal distance, things like that. So the forms are actually the same as the personal pronouns. Who for masculine singular, he for feminine singular, heim for masculine plural, hina for feminine plural. And this is one of the reasons that I wanted you to remember that in addition to who meaning he, it could also mean it. And in my mind, that retains this it is easier for me to plug that into rather than just having it more sort of human in meaning. So these are just the words themselves. This is just vocab. We have ze, which means this, zot, which means this. We get ela, which means these. Who can mean that. He can mean that. Heim means those. Hina means those. So those are our forms. So how are these used? Well, the demonstrative pronoun functions like an adjective. Just as acher, which we ran into in one of our online sessions, means other or another. What I'm about to say about the demonstratives, which is again just what we say about adjectives, but it's just to make sure that you've got acher in that list of how it's going to relate to the noun it modifies. So there's an attributive use of demonstrative pronouns. That is, and when the demonstrative pronouns are being used attributively, they agree with the head noun, that is the noun they modify, in gender, number, and definiteness. And that's the key difference between the predicative use and the attributive use. So gender, number, and definiteness, and they always follow the noun they describe. And so some examples here, we have Jesus, hazeh, and many of these are taken from the textbook there. So we have the horse, and then we get this. It's masculine, singular, and definite. We get masculine, singular, and definite. So then this means this horse. We could go through these about hasusot, which is a feminine plural, with ha'ele. So that this means these, because it's plural here, ele. these horses. Oh, sorry, no, we're feminine plural. Mares. Hasus, hahu, that would be that horse. Hasusim, hahim, that would be those horses, excuse me. So again, you can see in all of these situations, we've got agreement in gender and number. So the feminine plural, again, ele is going to be for masculine plural and feminine plural. Definiteness is agreeing in these as well, masculine singular, and then similarly masculine singular. Because demonstratives are so specific, they will often be definite. And even maybe sometimes if they don't have the definite article in their meaning, what they're trying to refer to is definite. Because you can see here, even in our translations, that the definite article pretty much does drop out. We don't need it. We're already specifying not just mares in general, but these mares. So we're going to have a lot of definite articles on these demonstrative pronouns. Futato points out that if you've got an attributive adjective connected to a noun, then the demonstrative pronoun will often follow the adjective. So here we have the horse, the good, so that would be the good horse, and then hazeh, that would mean this good horse. So all of these are pointing back to the same head noun. A couple of examples from the text. So a few times we've looked at Genesis 15 in our online session. I think actually we've only looked at it once because I fail to get us to that point every week. But this is how Genesis 15 starts. We have achar, chadevarim, chaele. So achar is one of our vocab words from this last chapter, which means after. And then we have chadevarim, which is this could be words or matters or things, right? Devar means word, matter, or thing. And then we get ha'ele, which agrees in definiteness and gender and number, because this is our plural demonstrative, our plural near demonstrative, so that is these. So Genesis 15:1 begins after these, and things or matters would be a better translation of that contextually, because it's referring to what just happened in Genesis 14, which is the great war of the different kings and Abraham's interaction with Melchizedek. Here, I've kind of done a riff on a passage. This is a phrase that gets repeated a few times at the end of Deuteronomy 4, and I've changed a few words because we haven't learned them yet. But here we get ha'am, hagadol, hazeh, and that we have the people, the great, the this. So then we get this great people. And if you read Deuteronomy 4, Moses is really emphasizing the uniqueness of the people of Israel. Okay, so the point here is demonstrative pronouns can be used, they are used like adjectives, and so they can be used attributively to kind of connect themselves directly into this phrase. And when they do that, they're going to agree in gender, number, and definiteness. They're going to follow the nouns they describe to get these sorts of phrases. These mares, after these things, this great people, things like that. Also, like adjectives, they can be used predicatively. That is, to predicate something on this pronoun. So this example, well, we'll just look at these in a moment. But so they're going to like predicative adjectives. They're going to agree with their head noun in gender and number. They will not be definite. So they don't take the definite article, and they usually precede the noun they modify. So here is an example. We get ze chasus. And so what we're saying here is not this horse, but this is the horse. See how we've made the horse a predicate, and our demonstrative pronoun becomes this sort of the subject is referencing this. So we have this is, we have to add the to be verb in English. This is the horse. Notice how here the definite article does show up. So if it's not definite, then we would be saying like this is a horse or something like that. I think all the ones I have are definite. But, a few more examples. Ele hasusot. This would be these are the mares. Okay, notice that we have feminine plural definiteness. We're using our plural. I'm not actually pointing anything out there at the end of the ele because it doesn't have an ending, but we're using our plural near demonstrative there, meaning these, and it's not definite, doesn't have the definite article on it, and it's preceding the noun. It's coming before the noun it's modifying. We have he hasusa, and so we get that is the mare. Or again, if we didn't have the definite article, then we would have that is a mare. Sort of an identification going on there. Well, either way, I'm saying that is the mare. You're pointing it out and you're saying that's the one I'm talking about. See, perhaps before this the speaker has been describing, and then the person says, I still don't get it. Then they finally point and they say, that one, that's the mare I'm talking about. And then here we get hena hasusot. Again, this is a feminine plural. It's definite. This is a feminine plural, far demonstrative, that is not definite because it's being used predicatively. And so we get those are the mares. Some other examples here from the text. Here we get zot beriti. Zot means this. It's our, oh, sorry, I meant to use the black there. That's our near demonstrative. This is our feminine singular, berit, beriti, beriti. So this is our noun berit with our first common singular possessive pronoun. So this is my covenant. That's from taken from the beginning of Genesis 17:10. Here's a very common phrase, ze hayom, ze hayom. This is the day. We are going to see a lot of yom with these demonstratives, so it's not uncommon to have hayom hahu, meaning that day, or yeah, hayomim ha'ele, or sorry. Hayomim hahem, which be like those days. So a lot of prophetic phrases coming out there. Sorry, my brain just had a brain dump. Zot haTorah. Here we get this is the Torah, or the law, or the instruction. So you can picture in your mind all the places that the Lord or Moses is saying, this is the law that God has commanded you, or these are the judgments, or these are the statutes and things like that. This is the construction we're using. And then this final one is actually how the book of Exodus starts. Ve'ele shemot b'nei Yisrael. So here we get ve'ele, which is and these, and then we get shemot b'nei Yisrael. So we get this phrase here, which is shemot is the feminine plural of, or the plural form of shem, which means name. So names of b'nei. We should recognize this. This is the one of two most common construct forms, b'nei, which is sons of, because it is construct Yisrael, Israel. And Yisrael is a proper noun, and so it's definite, and so it communicates it all the way back. So this is how in the Hebrew, and most English translations are doing a good job with this, how Exodus starts. And these are the names. Sorry, we should have R here to make it English. And these are the names of the sons of Israel. And then we have who came into Egypt with Joseph. All right, so we've had an attributive use that agrees in gender, number, and definite and follows the noun. We have a predicative use, agrees in gender and number precedes the noun. It's going to make a sentence. It's going to make a phrase in that sort of way, which would be a clause. It'll include a verb. There's also a substantive use that is not super common. Futato doesn't cover it, but there are times in which the pronouns stand in for their referent, thus functioning substantively. So here, this short phrase from Genesis 3:14, I really zeroed in on it. But if you think what's happening in Genesis chapter 3, asita zot. Asita, this is what? It's a first guttural and a third hey from asa, which means to do. And then this is our cal perfect 2ms. So you did zot, this. So here it's functioning as the object of the verb here. So this phrase shows up in Genesis 3:14. You did this. Now there's other things that are going on either side of these words, and so it might be better translated because you have done this or something like that. But there's a substantive use there. That'll be fairly easy to spot, but it's not going to be something that you're going to see a lot in this class because Futato doesn't cover it. Okay, so the demonstrative, again, that just feels to me, and I understand that I know this stuff and I'm teaching it to you, so I can understand if your feelings are different, but it feels to me primarily like vocab. It's just adding in, what is that? A couple more words into your understanding of adjectives. And understanding them as demonstratives. That is, they're pointing things out, they're demonstrating, they're clarifying. This is the day I'm talking about. That is the king I'm referring to. You have done this. It's grabbing our attention and dragging it to either something that's near to us or far away from us. The other thing that this chapter talks about is the relative pronoun. This is an incredibly common word in Hebrew. Far over 4,500 uses in the Old Testament. Lots and lots of times this is going to show up. This is a very conservative estimate, so it functions as just in the same way as the English relative pronoun, which has a lot of different forms. In English, who, whom, which, what, were, that. So this introduces a clause, a subordinate clause, and so it's saying the man who did this, he fell down, or something like that. So it's if you can picture this idea of a sentence is going along, and then there's this bracket to add a little bit more info. This is often what a relative pronoun is doing. Is it's kind of pausing us to say, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about this this person we just talked about, or this action or something like that. And so these words function in those ways. So the cool thing about the relative pronoun is that its form remains unchanged regardless of any word association. Yay! Finally, something that doesn't undergo any vowel changes at all. So you've got this was a vocab word for you, and you've got it memorized in all its forms. Good job. It could also follow various parts of the sentence. So, this clause, to give you a little bit more info, could come at any point. And so these are some examples that Futato has for you. So, nafal, ha'ish, asher, shalach, et hana'ar. This is going to complicate the exercise I gave you earlier, but let's talk about the verb. So here we have the verb. It's a cal perfect 3ms from nafal, which is to fall. So he fell. Ha'ish, the man, fell. And then we get this, we find our definite direct object marker. But then we get this asher here. So, so we're starting this sort of subordinate clause, getting a little bit more information about this. So asher is coming right after the man, so it probably is who. Shalach, so this is a cal perfect 3ms. From to send, so he sent. Et hana'ar, this is receiving the action of this verb, the boy. So we would translate this, the man who sent the boy fell. So it's a little confusing because you're holding off on using this verb, but in terms of English, that's how we would construct this sentence. So it's still the man fell, But we've paused to add a little bit more information about this man. Which man? Oh, the man who sent the boy. And we'll learn down here that a perfect verb and a relative clause can be translated in the past perfect. So we actually might say the man who had sent the boy fell. This next example, we have Shalach et hana'ar asher yashav babayit. So Shalach, Cal Perfect 3ms, he sent. Et hana'ar, so this is getting the action, so the boy, he sent the boy. Now it can't be the boy sent because the boy is after the definite direct object marker. So here we have our subject back here. This is our predicate here, so he sent the boy. Then we've got asher, which is introducing some sort of extra clause, that little pause in a sentence to give us more information. So who or what or whom or something like that. Yashav is to sit, dwell, or inhabit. So this would be he sat. Babayit, babayit. So here we have our preposition ba, in, and it's got a definite article on it because we have patak and dagesh here. So in the bayit, the house. So again, what we would say, he sent the boy who sat in the house. Or it could be he sent the boy who had sat or lived in the house or something like that. The context might help us clarify that. This final example he gives, we have Shalach et hana'ar la'ish asher yashav babayit. Oops, typing error. There should be a patak there. Okay, so here we get Shalach, which is again, he sent, Cal Perfect 3ms, et. So this is our subject, this is our predicate. The boy, predicate, remember, is everything that the verb is doing, not the doing of the verb. And so we have he sent, that's the subject, predicate, the boy. La'ish, la'ish. So here are the preposition, la, which is to. And then we've got this comments here, which is a patak that's been compensatory lengthening because it's being put on a word that has a guttural and so it rejects the dagesh. So to the man, ish is man, asher, let's put a little bracket here, who, yashav babayit, sat or dwelt in the house. And remember, I know it's in the because we have the preposition ba, and then we have the patak and the dagesh of the definite article. So this would be, he sent the boy to the man who had dwelt in the house, or who dwelled in the house, something like that. So this Futado is showing us how the sort of subordinate clauses, these little pauses to give us more information, can tell us more about the subject, as it did in this first one, the man. Now I'm going to pause. Who sent the boy? That man. Yeah, he fell. In the second example, it's telling us more information about the direct object. So he sent the boy, I'm going to pause, the boy who sat in the house. Aha, that boy, great. So now that's kind of modifying our understanding of the direct object. In this third example, it's modifying our indirect object. He sent the boy to the man, pause, give a little bit more information, to the man who dwelled in the house. Okay, all right, or dwelt, I guess would be better. Okay, so the relative pronoun, and I understand that for many of us, we've left English grammar behind us. That's okay. I did the same. I relearned English grammar when I learned Hebrew and Greek, and I had to have a Greek or a Hebrew grammar right next to me that I was studying, while at the same time have an English grammar in my other hand to look up things that I was supposed to have known in order to be able to read this. So I'm trying to give us sort of the Reader's Digest version of these English grammatical terms, that when you have this relative clause, again, it's kind of giving you, it's pausing, and it's kind of giving you some contingent information. It's this information that depends on this other thing. In this case, it's filling out some more information on the subject, the direct object, or the indirect object. Now, you'll notice in terms of the phrases that in each of these questions, each of these examples, the relative phrase came at the end. It ended the sentence. Even though, like in the first one in English, we put this relative clause, this phrase in the middle of the sentence. Remember, the man who had sent the boy fell. Well, in terms of these longer sentences, you do have in Hebrew where you'll get this relative clause, and then the main line of the sentence picks up and continues. So, for example, if I wanted to be saying something that this man had fallen into, that would have to be picked up after the relative clause. And so we're going to learn this in chapter 22. So it's not, I think, until next semester. But just to kind of log this here, that oftentimes these relative clauses are closed with a pronoun, and that's called a resumptive pronoun, and we'll talk about that in chapter 22. But just if you were curious, that's where we're going to go in a few chapters. As I already said, a perfect verb and a relative clause can be translated as a past perfect. So here are a couple of, well, this is an example from the text. This is from Deuteronomy 4, and I had to change it a little bit, but we have Ere et haaretz hatova asher natata la'amcha. Sorry, la'amcha. So here we have ere. This is a cal imperfect. This first common singular prefix. Ra'a. Ra'a is to see. To see, remember, and it's a third hey, and this is how third heys form in the imperfect. Why? Because this hey actually is a vowel, it's not a consonant. So this is I will see. What will I see? Aha! Here's our definite direct object marker that's telling me what I will see. Haaretz hatova is what? Definite. We have a feminine singular ending on the adjective here. Eretz looks like a masculine singular, but in fact it's feminine singular, so this is an attributive adjective being used here. So I will see the good land. Asher, which, we're referring to the good land, and so it's in English we would translate it as which. Natata, this is the second cal perfect second masculine singular of Natan. Remember that noon is going to assimilate because it's here followed by the sound of a non-guttural consonant, so which you gave, or actually maybe you have given, la amcha. La is our preposition to, people. Oh, I'm supposed to have a dogish there because it's geminate. And then this is your. This is our second masculine singular possessive ending. So, I will see the good land which you have given to your people. So that would be one example of a past perfect being used in that relative clause. And to use one of Tato's examples, Nafal ha'ish asher shalach et hana'ar. So this is that same example that's up here. So the man, and then we've got this this clause here, the man who had sent the boy fell. So this is again the past perfect, especially in this sentence makes a lot more sense because we're not trying to coordinate these actions, the falling with the sending, and so the past perfect allows us to kind of get further in the past to say, okay, this guy fell, but prior to that, at some point, he had sent the boy, and I'm trying to use that action to specify him. So we would say, the man who had sent the boy fell. All right. So relative clauses, again, their form never changes. You don't have to worry about vowel changes, which is good. Just picking up, okay, what part of the sentence is it modifying, and then doing our translation from there. The last thing to cover in this chapter is the directive hey. So there are times in which a chametz hey is added to the end of a word to add the idea of direction toward. So this is similar to the English ending word like home word, coast word, city word, whatever, that this gives us the sense of, oh, I'm going in that direction. The one thing, I mean, you've already know a chametz hey from a feminine singular ending on nouns and on adjectives. So what's different about this is it's not accented. And so you get different vowel changes. And I know that probably doesn't make you feel good, But what I've got over here is the list of the most common words with directional endings, and we're not going to use these a ton in the course, but I would write these down at some point and just memorize them among all the other things that you have to memorize. But just to fill this out, that there is this use of the directive he. So for example, Futato gives us the word irets, where the accent is here, and I've used this symbol throughout here to kind of point out where the accent is. So here we get arza, arza. First of all, irets doesn't take a comet he as a feminine singular ending. It's not an adjective, so this is already weird. But the fact that our accent is here, and every word in the Old Testament has an accent on it, and so you'll see some mark either above or below that tells you the accent is there. That's what tells us that this means land word or earth word, something like that. Habayit, habaita, habaita. So again, this comet's he ending is not accented, so the accent stays here on this this syllable. This is a diphthong, so it's bayit. It's not bayit. It's bayit, and that accent remains there. And this means like house word. And so in a modern English translation, they would just say to the house or something like that. So here we have ha'ir, the city. Ha'ira, which would mean city word or to the city. I think that this is behind at least the etymological use of Ish and Isha in Genesis 2. When Adam sees Eve, he says, "She shall be called Isha, for she has been taken out of an Ish." And I think the play here is on the directional he. That otherwise, I mean, it could just be, hey, these things sound the same, but his emphasis on she has been taken out of implies this sort of directional use, and so I think that gets to some of the differences here between Ish and Isha. It could just mean, hey, we added a feminine ending, but just one way to remember this directional he. So here are these 7 are the far most common words in the Hebrew Old Testament with these directional endings. Some of you don't know. So we have habayit becomes habayita, habayita. Sorry, habayita, because this is silent. It's preceded by a short vowel. So house word, ha'ira, 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 because the accent is here. This is city word. Hashamayma, Hashamayma, Hashamayma. This sounds a lot like Aunt Jemima. Hashamayma. This means heavenward, skyward, something like that. Mitzrayma, Mitzrayma. So you don't know this word Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is the word for Egypt. Mitzrayma is Egypt word or to Egypt. So in Deuteronomy, when the Lord warns Israel, do not return to Egypt. I'll have to look it up, but that would be a natural place where this form would be used. Now I'm mucking that up. Hahara, 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 hahara. This har you're going to learn either this chapter or the next chapter, means mountain. Yeah, I think maybe it's the next chapter. So this is mountain word. Shama, shama, shama. So this comes from sham, which means there. So this means their word or to their. So it would be used in those. And then yama, yama is sea word. So all of them are kind of, geographically locative in their sense of the house, the city, the heavens, Egypt, the mountains, there, or the sea. And just for your future knowledge, or maybe knowledge right now. All right, let's go over our vocab for the chapter. We have behema is animal or cattle. A lot of these words seem like they kind of prep you to study Leviticus. Bakar is herd. Par is a bull. Zon is a flock. Yavesh is to be dry or to wither. Yatav is to be good, and you can see how this form is related to tov. So this is the verbal form of that concept, yatav, to be good. Yalad is to give birth. This gets used a fair amount there, not only for human birth, but also the Lord's action to Israel. Yatzar is to form or fashion, create. Yareh is to fear or be afraid. So the fact that we have this sere here, sere here, tells us it's a stative verb. So yareh, to fear, to be afraid, and yarash is to inherit. It's going to make yarash, going to make you rich, inherit. So this gets used obviously in a lot of the talk about the land as Israel's inheritance. Okay, let's look at a few. Oh, I thought that word. Let's look at a few practice sentences here. Ze hayom asher natan Adonai et Sisra beyadecha. Ze. So here we have this, and then hayom. Here we have the day. So this, the day, must mean this is the day. This is the day, asher, which, Natan, so that's our Cal Perfect 3MS, to give, he gave, Adonai, the divine name, so we're going to use Lord here. Lord, et, definite direct object marker, so this is receiving the action of this verb. So in this sentence, we haven't had a verb until right here. So interesting. This sort of phrase is demonstrative phrase, kind of kicking things off. Sisra is the proper name of Sisera, and then be yad echa. Be is in at or with. Yad is hand, and then echa is the suffix second masculine singular your. If you're thinking, wait a minute, normally it's a shava there, this is just an unexpected use of this, and I'm going to look this up real quick and try and keep talking while I'm looking it up. I'm failing on the keeping talking front because I want to see if it comes at the end of the sentence. Nope, it does not. Nope. Anyway, so for some reason this is just a not expected vowel change, but it still is the suffix here. So here would be, the translation would be, this is the day, and probably good English we would have in which, but we can put that in brackets, that's fine, in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. So that's what that sentence means. Number 2, Bayom Hahu Zarat Adonai et Avram Berit. Yep, I did not do the right consonant here. So glad you all are along for the ride here. There we go. Karat. Ba-da! Little mistake there. All right, so what do we have here? We have bayom. So we have ba. Preposition ba is in, at, or with. It's definite because we have the patak under and the dagesh there. Yom is day. Hahu is our definite article. Who is that? Right? It's our far demonstrative in the masculine singular, that. And these are related to one another attributively, right? Because we have person, gender, number agreement, it's following, and agrees indefiniteness, so that this would be in that day, in that day. Whereas this up here was a predicative use. So in that day, karat is to cut, Cal Perfect 3MS, so he cut Adonai, the Lord cut, we can kind of cross that out, the Lord cut. Here we have the definite direct object marker, so everything up here has been our subject, and now we have our predicate. Et Avram, Abraham. Actually, right now it's just still Abram, and then Berit. So this is a covenant. Now, Furtado points out on page 107 that et here is used more in the sense of with, rather than the definite direct object marker. But so what we would have here is, in that day, the Lord cut a covenant with Abraham, or cut Abraham a covenant, or made a covenant with Abraham. Something like that would be the sense of it. Okay, so these are some. Oh, not yet. Here's another one that I kind of riffed out of Deuteronomy. Shema ha'am et hamishpatim asher natan nevi ha'elohim. So here we have Shema is our Cal Perfect 3MS of to hear or to listen or obey. So we have he heard, and we have the people. Now, it certainly would make sense in our mind if it was he heard the people, but here we have the definite direct object marker, and so this must be the subject. So this ha'am is not the direct object. So it is rather the subject of the verb, so it's the people heard. The people heard. It's not he heard the people, because this noun is preceding the definite direct object marker, so it cannot be the direct object. It has to be the subject. It has to be the one doing the action. So we have the people heard. What did they hear? Hamishpatim, the judgments, right? The judgments. The people heard the judgments. Then we have asher, so we get this little pause to further detail. Which Natan, so he gave, right? Cal Perfect 3MS, Natan, he gave Navi ha'elohim. So this Navi is prophet, but it's not Navi, it's Nevi. So we have this vowel reduction here, which should make us think, oh, maybe I have a construct phrase. And then we get ha'elohim is the gods, or perhaps God. So that would be prophet of God. So the prophet of God he gave. So to put all this together, the people heard the judgments which the prophet of God gave, or God's prophet gave, or had given, or something like that. This final one I think is from, it's from one of your, again I riffed it, but it's out of chapter 17's examples. So Ze, Zehav, Imenu, Asher, Lakacha, Me Adonai. So Ze, this, Zahav, gold, but Zahav starts with that comments, and we got this vowel reduction. So we're thinking maybe construct phrase Imenu. This is from the noun im. Im is one of our geminate nouns. Im. So when it takes a suffix, gemination shows up. That is, it shows itself to actually, in its root, have two mems. So these twins, these Gemini, these double mems. So here it shows up. And so we get imenu. So this is our mother. So this would be our mother's gold, right? Gold of our mother. And then we get this predicative use of ze. So this is the gold of our mother. Asher, kind of bracket this off here. Asher. Lakacha, lakacha. This is our Cal Perfect 3FS from lakach, which means she took. Which she took. Me Adonai. So we've got this comets hey ending, but then we've got this thing that looks like a dagesh, but it's not a dagesh. Remember, it's a mapik. Mapik. So its job is to tell you, I'm not a vowel, I'm actually a consonant. And so the only time we've come up against this is when it's a third feminine singular possessive pronoun, right? Or possessive suffix, excuse me. Possessive suffix. So this is her. And then we got Adon. Adon is master. And then we can realize this mem is the preposition mean that's been attached here inseparably. And the noon that wants to assimilate in the first root consonant has been rejected, so we get the sere compensatory lengthening. Remember that what we want to be suspicious of when we see on the front of a word are the hays, vavs, baits, kaf, lameds, mems. These are conjunction, definite article, and these are prepositions, right? So now to gather ourselves together, we would say, this is our mother's gold, which she took from her master.